Well, let's head straight to the Elections Nerve Centre now. Thulasizwe Simelane is tracking developments there for us, watching those boards. Thulas, good morning to you once again, and give us some idea of, we've just been through some of the breakdowns of the main areas, but what are you seeing there, especially when it comes to those smaller parties that seem to be claiming their share as well?
Good morning, Yoveka. I can tell you that the board behind me is indicating that we're standing at about 91% of the voting stations. So the 22,000 voting stations across the country, we're at 91% in terms of completion of the results from those voting stations. And it's indicating that the ANC currently controls 118 councils across South Africa, and it's talking about the DA controlling 18 councils across the country. But look at that figure for the number of councils that are hung. We're looking there at a number that stands at 17 councils that are hung. And that's where really the focus and interest is as you talk about the smaller parties. I've heard names of political parties that I didn't even know existed, but I tell you now, over the coming weeks, those will be the names we'll be talking about. Parties such as the Kharuo Gemeenskap Partij. You had never heard of it. You will know about the KGP, as it is called, the Karoo Democratic Force, KDF, Forum for Service Delivery in the Northwest. Those people are going to be really key in terms of how governments are formed and coalitions are formed. The Active United Front in the Western Cape. I'm telling you, these are political parties that we didn't know about, but in the coming weeks, as that big C word, coalitions, becomes more prominent, we will know the names of those parties.
Well, you've also been out and about there on the floor, talking to the politicians, talking to the bigwigs from all the parties who've been watching the results coming in. And speaking about that big C, Thulas, we know that they have expressed some very interesting sentiment about will they or won't they?
Well, you see, Yuveka, the political parties insist that their coalition arrangements will be guided by principles, by their own principles. So, for instance, Bantu Holomisa already indicating last night that he has already received a call from the DA talking about forming a coalition in Nelson Mandela Bay. And he says the principle for them is to always lean on the side of the political parties that appears to be favored by the people in a particular municipality. So they tend to want to give, credence to the voice of the masses, the party that enjoyed most of the support. The EFF have also laid their own ground rules. The one principle that they've been saying, even before we got to this stage, even before August the 3rd, was that they will not go into a coalition with the ANC, especially in instances where the ANC comes in at under 50%. And also they will go into, they're calling it arrangements, and it's an interesting phrase because it seems the EFF is shying away from saying coalitions, because you can imagine there's a lot at stake here. The standing of the political party, if the EFF is suddenly going into a proper coalition with the DA, how will its voters react to that? So they're talking about arrangements to help those political parties govern, but they have to agree on certain deliverables and sign a contract.
Well, that also leaves one to wonder, Thulas, as to, how do they get to sit around a table or get in the same room, considering what many have said or what they've said about each other in the run-up to these elections? How do you get past that as a political party? How do you get past that to now have to work together when you've almost been sort of heavily critical of each other over the past couple of months?
Well, one of Julius Malema's favorite phrases is, in politics, there are no permanent friends and there are no permanent enemies. We've seen this. It's exactly 10 years ago that a coalition of 7 political parties took over the city of Cape Town. That included the Democratic Alliance, the Independent Democrats. You'll remember the negotiations took about 2 weeks for these political parties to knit together that coalition. It was a fragile coalition. A lot of the details were discussed behind closed doors. It's really, horse trading. People agree. For instance, the EFF says if they, Dalimpofu talking yesterday, that, for instance, if they are to support any kind of arrangement, coalition arrangement in Nelson Mandela Bay, they will want, for example, a deal and a guarantee that things such as the bucket toilet system will be eradicated, and with a timeline of by when that will be achieved. In exchange, then you can expect appointments to certain positions in the various councils. So a lot of it is really horse trading between the political parties.
All right, that's where we leave it for now. Thulasizwe Simelane, live from the Results Operations Center in Pretoria, where I'm sure a lot of those political parties are now starting to smile at one another a little bit more than they have been over the past couple of months.